Fay kind of learnt from raw experience upwards. There was no conventional training and art training and all of the usual kind of apparatus that people go through and gallery practice and all the rest of it. For me, she was a photographic topographer, if that's not too much of a tautology, but it's this idea that she was out there with a camera, always wanted to be a documentary photographer, and she started off by making what I think are very documentary things about reporting on these walks that she made. Then she goes into this kind of romantic phase where she would get big landscapes and clouds and goodness all that, and she hated being called a romantic photographer, absolutely hated it, to something where she wanted to report back and becoming much more politically sensitive and aware to what was going on around her in the landscape. We think of photographing landscape as almost something that we do naturally. Anyone can do it. You go out with your camera, you point it, you take a picture, and you made a landscape photograph. One of the things you've got to look at with Fay is, well, there's two things really. First of all is her use of cameras. We take that for granted, and particularly the square format. Very, very few photographers can actually handle the square format, because what they tend to do in that square format, they take the diagonals and they put the subject bang in the middle, okay, and the composition just hangs on that. Fay does it so much more subtly. The most important aspect is her relationship to light. We take that for granted. We just think of light as something which illuminates it sufficiently to make an exposure. For Fay, it's actually about the way in which light expresses itself on that landscape and appropriately to that landscape. It's not just about, giving a nice casting, nice shadows and everything. It's got to be the right kind of light, in the right way, coming from the right angle, in the right position, then choosing your viewpoint, then setting it up and framing it. It's a whole set of things. And now you don't do that just going out to a place and taking a picture. You've got to involve yourself in that journey and sensitize yourself to a particular point where you can actually set the camera up, and it's almost become second nature. The camera is so part of your eye-mind relationship that you forget about all that technical stuff because it's second nature. We've now got this culture of being able to look at a photograph and just go, bang, I've got it, I understand it, and walk on to the next. We never allow ourselves the time to actually stand in front of a photograph and allow it to absorb us and be absorbed by that photograph and work back and forth over maybe 5-10 minutes and just enjoy it and look at it and think about it and enjoy it for what it is. I think it probably was a bigger struggle for her to actually make a mark. It was at a time when photography didn't have the status that it now enjoys. I mean, we've got to remember that when she began in the mid-60s, there wasn't even a photographic gallery. There were no dealers, there was photographic publications. If you were a photographer, you usually were an illustrator to somebody else. You were not somebody in your own right. And so Fay, all her working life, all that kind of self-experience and learning and teaching herself was actually to overcome all those prejudices against the role of a photographer. What really mattered to her were the prints on the wall. The exhibition is the thing. The exhibition is where those photographs sing.